I got off work a little later than usual today. When I pushed open the door to our apartment, I saw Victoria Thompson and her male bestie, Ethan Reed, sitting side by side on the sofa watching TV. Ethan was wearing nothing but a pair of sweatpants, his upper body bare, making no effort to be discreet. Seeing me, Ethan looked up, smiled, and gave a casual greeting. I was already used to this scene, so it didn't faze me. After Ethan left, Victoria looked at me, a complex expression in her eyes. "How come you don't get jealous anymore?" I was drying my hair with a towel and didn't even look up. "Didn't you say he's your male bestie? That you have a purely platonic friendship?" "I believe you." Victoria bit her lip and said nothing more. Later, after she showered and tried to get close to me, I pushed her away. Her face instantly darkened. "Sincere Clark, what is your problem?" I explained in a gentle tone. "Work has been crazy these last few days. I just need to decompress." The truth was, I'd spent 2 wild hours at her friend's place before coming home, and my back was killing me. The next morning, probably because I hadn't satisfied her the night before, Victoria didn't give me so much as a pleasant look. Just as she was about to leave, she tossed a cold statement over her shoulder. "Vivian's engagement is tomorrow. I won't be coming home tonight." I nodded to show I understood. She didn't look at me again before slamming the door on her way out. That evening after work, I was taking a walk near our apartment when my phone rang. It was my mom. The second I answered, her voice came crashing down on me. "I heard from Vicky that you two fought again and you're giving her the silent treatment." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "It's nothing, I'm just tired from work." "You silly boy," my mother's voice shot up an octave. "How many times have I told you? Why don't you ever learn? Victoria makes more in a month than you do in a whole year. Keeping her happy is more important than anything else."
All right, I get it."
Before she could finish, I hung up, a heavy feeling tightening in my chest. To be honest, if it weren't for my mother, I would have broken up with Victoria long ago. About a year ago, after Victoria and I had been living together for 2 years, I accidentally saw a photo on her phone. It was her and Ethan Reed, their faces pressed together, filling the entire frame. Their smiles were blindingly bright, and the background looked like a karaoke room. I saw red. We had a massive fight. I held up the phone, my voice trembling as I confronted her. "Don't you think you owe me an explanation? It was just a joke between friends." She snatched the phone back, her expression completely unconcerned. "Sincere, can you please grow up? Be a man. Stop making a big deal out of nothing like some green-eyed monster. Friends? Male and female friends pressing their faces together like that?" I felt a burning heat rush to my head, as if someone was forcing a green hat onto it. After the fight, a suffocating sense of humiliation lodged in my chest. I couldn't swallow it. Fueled by rage, I found Ethan Reed, grabbed him by the collar, and hauled him to his feet. "What the hell is wrong with you? Don't you know how to keep your distance from someone else's girlfriend?" He froze for a second, then suddenly his hand flew up and clawed at my face. "Are you insane?" A stinging pain seared my cheek, and my temper exploded. He'd thrown the first punch, so all bets were off. I swung my arm and let my fists fly, pounding all my pent-up frustration into his face. We ended up at the police station, both of us bruised. With no security footage, it was his word against mine. When Victoria arrived, she spent ages sweet-talking the officers, and eventually we were released without charges. The moment we were outside, she laid into me, a torrent of harsh words, each one painting me as the villain. Those cutting remarks stabbed at me like icicles. Watching her protectively shield Ethan, I suddenly felt exhausted. My heart felt like it was sinking into a bucket of ice water. Let's break up. From that day on, Victoria and I entered a long, cold war. Under the same roof, the air was perpetually chilly. Neither of us was willing to be the first to give in. But in my quieter moments, images from our childhood would always surface. We grew up together, from fighting over toys while wearing diapers to secretly passing notes in middle school. Our lives were deeply intertwined. The night of our high school graduation, in a corner of the stadium bleachers, she had blushed and said, "Maybe we should give it a try." My palms were so sweaty with nerves I could only nod frantically. We had our share of embarrassing moments too, like the time we were fooling around at her house when her parents were out, only for them to come back unexpectedly. I panicked and dove under her covers, but her dad just laughed, pulled me out, and made me sit down for tea. The memory still makes my face burn. We survived 4 years of a long-distance relationship in college, thousands of nights on video calls, and a drawer full of train tickets. Back then, I was so sure she was the one, that nothing could ever tear us apart. I never thought we would reach the point of breaking up. But I also never imagined that the girl who once said she only had eyes for me would be so ambiguously close to another man, and even side with him to blame me when we fought. The Cold War lasted for nearly a month. The air in our apartment felt frozen. I circled my payday on the calendar, already planning to contact a real estate agent. I just wanted to escape this suffocating home as soon as possible. It wasn't that Victoria didn't try to reconcile. She'd offer me a plate of washed fruit, and I'd turn and walk into the bedroom. At night, she'd try to slip into my bed, and I'd roll over, pulling the covers tighter around me. Every time she got close, her scathing accusations outside the police station would explode in my ears. The way she had shielded Ethan was a blinding glare, a thorn embedded in my heart that ached at the slightest touch. I always believed that loving someone meant being protective, that even if they were completely in the wrong, you should stand by their side and face the world together. But Victoria? She had helped someone else drive a knife into my heart. Just as I found a promising apartment and was planning to sign the lease that weekend, Victoria played her trump card. I had just gotten home from work when I saw my mom, Helen Clark, sitting on the sofa. Victoria stood beside her, her eyes red. It was obvious she had called for backup. "Look at you, a grown man still throwing tantrums," my mom began. She patted Victoria's hand and sighed. "Vicky is such a good girl. She gives you her all. Can't you, as a man, be a little more accommodating? Don't get hung up on little things." The words sounded familiar. They were almost identical to what Victoria had said a few days ago when she tried to make up. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach. I couldn't tell if it was from anger or disgust. I stared at my mom, suddenly remembering the day I got my acceptance letter to a top-tier university. When she learned Victoria had only gotten into a second-tier college, she had told me, "She's not good enough for you." But I hadn't paid her any mind. I knew my mother all too well. My mom was the type of woman who would do anything for her brother, constantly draining our family's resources for him. As far back as I can remember, my uncle was always showing up at our house, rubbing his hands together and saying, "Sis, I'm a little short on cash." He called it borrowing, but I never saw him pay a cent back. My mom would always smile and hand over the money, then turn around and cut our household expenses. My dad, David Clark, was a gentle soul. He argued with her about the loans a few times, but every fight ended with her throwing a hysterical fit and him retreating to the balcony to smoke in silence. The family's financial strain ultimately fell on my shoulders. During my middle school years, our dinner table was always filled with bland greens and tofu. Scrambled eggs were a rare treat, considered a meat dish. It was Victoria who helped me through it. We were next-door neighbors, and I'd always step in when I saw boys bullying her at school. In return, she would often share her snacks with me. I never forgot her kindness. I studied with a fierce determination, not just to make something of myself and repay her, but also to one day stand tall and make my mother taste what it was like to eat scraps. My mom's 180-degree turn in attitude toward Victoria really began after she started her social media career in college. During her freshman year, Victoria sent me a mysterious message telling me to follow her account for a surprise. When I clicked the link, I found she had roped her roommates into making parody skits, reenacting scenes from popular melodramatic TV shows. On camera, they wore wrinkled, rented period costumes, with hairpins made from soda can tabs and red string. They stumbled through their lines, trying to suppress their laughter while feigning deep emotion. The comments section had a few hundred scattered likes. I didn't say anything critical, I actually found it novel. As a computer science major, I knew a bit about post-production effects. I started helping her edit videos in my spare time, adding simple transitions and sound effects. Her account slowly started to gain traction. When she hit 10,000 followers, she called me, screaming with excitement, "Thank you, my tech wizard," but later, as my coursework got heavier, staying up all night to help her with post-production started to interfere with my own classes. I told her, "When summer break comes, I'll teach you everything, and you can do it yourself." Victoria didn't object at the time. But that whole summer, whenever I tried to teach her how to use the editing software, she'd end up distracting me, draping herself over the keyboard and dangling her feet, or nibbling on my ear and whispering, "I can't remember. Why don't we do something else first?" By the end of the summer, I'd lost 10 pounds, and she hadn't learned a thing. In the second semester of our sophomore year, Victoria's content suddenly shifted to cosplay. She'd put on colorful wigs and dramatic fake eyelashes, striking cute poses for the camera. At the time, I was working on freelance projects with a senior from my department, writing code and building apps. I was making a few $1,000s a month, and I'd always transfer half of it to Victoria's Venmo with the note spending money. She was never a big spender, and with the allowance her parents gave her, she had more than enough for a few cosplay outfits. When I first saw her cosplay videos, I just thought it was a phase. The beauty filters made her skin glow, and her eyeliner was winged dramatically, a stark contrast to her usual makeup-free face. I sat in my dorm chair, watching her wink at the camera over and over, feeling a strange stir inside me. I couldn't resist teasing her. "The video looks great," I messaged. She sent back a smug emoji followed by, "Cute, right?" It took me 3 hours to do my makeup. To my surprise, her follower count skyrocketed. She went from tens of thousands to over 100,000 in just 6 months. By the start of our junior year, she excitedly told me she had 300,000 followers. By then, she was already getting paid gigs, appearing at conventions, and doing promotional photo shoots for mobile games. On a good month, she could make $50,000 or $60,000. The day she received her first large payment, she bought me the latest model laptop. She also sent me a huge cash transfer on WhatsApp, with the note, "Spending money for you." I held my phone, which felt hot in my hand, and suddenly laughed out loud. I hadn't even had the chance to provide her with a good life, and here I was, already about to be a kept man. I sent the money back. I didn't need it, and my pride wouldn't allow me to live off my girlfriend. I was earning my own living with code. I didn't need to spend her money, but I kept the laptop. It was a heartfelt gift, and rejecting it would have felt cold. After she got into the cosplay scene, I did some digging on various forums. Most of what I heard was negative, chaotic backstage environments, photographers exploiting models, and a mixed bag of fans. The more I heard, the more uneasy I felt. Being hundreds of miles apart, all I could do was tell her to be careful. I couldn't bring myself to ask her to quit, to interfere with her life so directly. I just told her, "If you're not happy doing it, then don't. I can support you." Then I threw myself back into my studies with even more determination. Victoria casually sent back an okay emoji. She was good about keeping me updated, sending me her itinerary whenever she attended an event. "Just got to the venue. I'm with the studio crew. It's over, getting a cab back to the hotel now." When I called her at night, she usually picked up within 2 rings. If there was a lot of background noise, she would always find a quiet spot to talk to me. These small gestures were like a balm, gradually easing my anxieties. Her social media career flourished. By the time we graduated, she was a well-known blogger. Whenever we went home for the holidays, she would show up with bags of gifts, buying premium tea for my dad and stylish scarves for my mom, making them both beam with joy. My mother, especially, did a complete 180 after learning Victoria was earning tens of thousands a month. She bragged to everyone about how capable and sensible our Vicky was, completely forgetting her previous "not good enough for you" stance. The mere mention of Victoria's name would bring a smile to her face. She had clearly accepted her as the perfect daughter-in-law, putting her snobbery on full display. After graduation, I found a job as a software developer in the city where Victoria lived. My salary was $12,000 a month, and with project bonuses, my first-year income was around $150,000. It was a great salary for a recent graduate, but compared to Victoria, it was what she made in a single month. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment and officially began our life together. On moving day, Victoria threw her arms around my neck and spun me around. Finally, no more counting the days until we see each other once a month. The sunlight caught in her hair, and I thought that from then on, life would be smooth sailing. It wasn't until Ethan Reed's figure started appearing frequently in our apartment that I slowly realized something was wrong. Ethan was a freelance photographer, responsible for many of Victoria's best cosplay shoots. Besides Victoria, he regularly worked with 2 other models, Vivian Jones and Sophia Miller. The 4 of them formed a small clique, always sticking together for video shoots and events. When Victoria used to mention them, I just thought they were professional colleagues. But seeing them together in person, I found their dynamic jarring. The four of them had absolutely no sense of personal boundaries. Victoria would lean on Ethan's shoulder to look at photos on his camera. Vivian would drink arm in arm with him after losing a game. Sophia would share a drink with him using 2 straws in 1 cup. These kinds of things, which they saw as perfectly normal, felt way over the line to me, especially with Victoria. She was my girlfriend. I couldn't accept her being so intimate with another man. I talked to her about it when I got home. She was applying a face mask and false eyelashes and didn't even look up from the mirror. You're overthinking it. We're just besties. I see him as one of my girlfriends. Is there such a thing as a male bestie? I stared at her reflection. You have a boyfriend. She peeled off the mask, turned, and wrapped her arms around mine, whining playfully. Okay, I know you're jealous. I'll be more careful next time, all right? But at the next gathering, she completely forgot her promise. When Ethan once again put his hand on her waist, I couldn't hold back. I slapped his hand away. Don't get handsy, I said coldly. The air instantly froze. Victoria pursed her lips, her expression sour, but she didn't say anything. Vivian and Sophia chimed in, saying I was overreacting and ruining the mood. The fight on the way home that night was vicious. She accused me of embarrassing her. I accused her of having no sense of propriety. That party ended on a sour note. The ride back to the apartment was silent. The moment the door closed, I unleashed all my pent-up frustration. Either find a female photographer or just quit this line of work altogether. I had never interfered with her career before, but seeing her boundary-less interactions with Ethan, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to sever that connection. Victoria reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, her voice suddenly sharp. Sincere Clark, be reasonable. Cosplay is a young person's game. I'm at the peak of my career right now. How can I just give it up? She held her neck stiff, her eyes turning red, but she refused to back down. Besides, most photographers in this industry are men. Even if I switch, what makes you think you'll approve of the next one? We'll just end up fighting again. The argument snowballed, escalating from the photographer to our mutual trust. Finally, with tears in her eyes, she relented. Fine. I promise you, I'll keep my distance from him. No contact outside of work. Is that good enough for you? Seeing the redness in her eyes, my anger gradually subsided. I grunted in agreement, a sign of forgiveness. But that night, lying in bed and listening to the even sound of her breathing beside me, I couldn't sleep. The thorn of suspicion had already been planted now. It had just burrowed deeper. It wasn't long before I discovered something that made me even more furious. They went to a convention in another city, and the four of them actually shared a single hotel suite. The event organizers only booked 1 room, and everything else was sold out, Victoria explained nonchalantly over the phone. Besides, all 4 of us are together. What is there to worry about? My knuckles turned white as I gripped my phone. Victoria, tell me, what boyfriend would be okay with his girlfriend sharing a room with another man? But it's for work. Her voice grew frantic. Vivian and Sophia are here too. It's not like it's just me and Ethan alone. That doesn't matter. I was practically shouting now. Go find another hotel right now. I don't care if it's just a king-size bed. I'll transfer you the money. I told you there are no vacant rooms, she yelled back. Sincere, can you stop being so childish? We're just exhausted. What could possibly happen in one night? In the end, Victoria stayed with them. She kept a video call open with me before she went to sleep. The camera pointed at the ceiling so I could hear her breathing. Our relationship grew more and more strained with each of these battles. That photo from the karaoke bar was just the final straw. I never expected her to use my mom as a weapon. I had long given up on Helen. A woman who valued her brother more than her husband and son could never be impartial. I had already planned my future, send her money for living expenses every month, show up for holidays but otherwise keep interactions to a minimum. But her latest move completely upended my plans. She stuck to me like glue, following me from our apartment to the lobby of my office building, repeating the same lines over and over. A harmonious family brings prosperity. Vicky has it so hard. I was terrified she would jeopardize my hard-won job, so I gritted my teeth and gave in. That night, Victoria and I lay in the same bed again, but it felt like a cold river flowed between us. She slept with her back to me, her breathing even, seemingly in a deep sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind a chaotic mess. To say Victoria didn't love me would be a lie. All those years of companionship and warmth couldn't be faked. But to say she and Ethan were innocent, their boundary-crossing behavior was a slap in the face that jolted me awake. Sometime in the dead of night, as a sliver of light peeked through the curtains, I pulled out my phone. The screen's glow illuminated my exhausted face. A thought suddenly emerged, both insane and tragic. I wanted revenge. From that day on, I promised Victoria I wouldn't fight with her anymore. On one condition. I had to accompany her to any private gatherings with Ethan and the others. I promised I wouldn't lose my temper, that even if I saw something that crossed a line, I would talk to her about it calmly. Victoria agreed. I went online and bought the smallest micro camera I could find. It took me 3 days of following tutorials to disassemble it and embed the lens into the second button of a dress shirt. The wiring was hidden in the seams, completely unnoticeable unless you looked very closely. Every time I went to one of their parties, I wore that shirt, and the button on my chest silently recorded all the moments that Victoria considered no big deal. Once the memory card was full, I printed out a stack of photos. The first person I went to see was Vivian Jones. In her apartment, when she saw the photos I pushed across the table, her face instantly changed. The picture on top showed her in a backless dress, sitting on Ethan's lap. They were making a heart shape with their hands for the camera, their lips almost touching. Her voice trembled, her fingertips wrinkling the photo. "What do you want?" I recited the classic line. "You wouldn't want your fans to see these photos, would you?" She bit her lip and looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. "You're not afraid I'll tell Vicky?" I leaned back in my chair, perfectly calm. "Be my guest." A few hours later, I told Vivian, now in my arms, that if she didn't want the photos to leak, she had to get Ethan married as soon as possible. As long as Ethan was married, I wouldn't bother him. Next, I went to see Sophia Miller. Compared to Vivian, Sophia had a stubborn, won't-admit-fault attitude. In the hotel room, she tried to reason with me. "You're just too rigid. Men like a damsel in distress for the emotional validation, and it's the same for women. Ethan is charming, he can help us get resources, and he's fun to hang out with. Who wouldn't rely on someone like that?" She looked up, her eyelashes brushing her cheek. "It's inevitable that we're close, but I can guarantee that none of the three of us have crossed that final line with him." I almost laughed out loud. "So, it only counts as crossing the line if you're caught in the act?" Seeing my silence, she got a little angry. "Believe it or not, what's important is whether you still want this relationship." I answered nonchalantly, "In that case, if I post these photos online to let everyone see your platonic friendship, you shouldn't have anything to worry about, right?" That remark was like a needle popping her self-deceptive bubble. Sophia bit her lip and ultimately made the same choice as Vivian. Afterward, I gave Sophia the same instruction: help find Ethan a wife. Once I had vented my anger, I would move somewhere else and start over. After throwing myself completely into my work, the tangled resentment really did begin to fade. Looking at the growing balance in my bank account, the thought occurred to me: money is the only thing that won't betray you. Meanwhile, there was some news from Vivian's side. After our meeting, she seemed to have a complete change of heart. She stopped hanging around with Ethan and his crew and started dating a rich second-generation heir. I heard his family was in the seafood business, with assets in the tens of millions. Not exactly a dynasty, but more than enough for her to live as a wealthy housewife. She was even helping her boyfriend's family by live streaming to sell their products. Even more surprisingly, they decided to get engaged after dating for less than 3 months. However, 2 days before her engagement party, on a Friday evening, she suddenly appeared outside my office. "Can we talk?" She was wearing a champagne-colored dress and exquisite makeup, carrying a luxury shopping bag. In the coffee shop, she kept her mask on, stirring her caramel macchiato. It was a long time before she spoke. "I know you didn't delete the photos." I didn't say anything, just looked at her. "I'm getting engaged soon." She looked up, a pleading look in her eyes. "If those photos get out, my life is over." I inwardly scoffed. They were all so righteous when they were talking about their platonic friendship, but the second they were caught on camera, they scrambled to find some unsuspecting guy to marry them. I raised my coffee cup and offered a silent, 3-second moment of mourning for her clueless fiancé. "So, you came to me to ask me to delete the photos." She took a deep breath, pulled a box from her bag and pushed it toward me. "I bought you a gift." I opened the box. Inside was a piece of daringly designed lingerie. For a second, I almost choked on my coffee. Her thought process was truly, bizarrely impressive. I hadn't contacted Vivian since that day. As they say, play with fire and you get burned. But here she was, serving herself up on a platter right before her engagement. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed in black lingerie, her wet hair dripping onto her shoulders. Her eyes still held a trace of anxiety. "You have to swear. Those photos will never get out. At least not before I'm married." My hand, which was drying my hair, paused. With cloud storage and encryption these days, I could have dozens of backups hidden away. Even if I deleted every photo from my phone in front of her, she wouldn't believe me. I tossed the towel onto a chair and watched her body instantly tense up. "You need to take the matter of finding Ethan a girlfriend seriously. It's best to find someone assertive. Get him married quickly. Once he's settled down, he'll naturally keep his distance from you all. Then I can finally have a peaceful life with Vicky, and I won't bother any of you." Vivian stared at me blankly, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, followed by a frown. "A guy like Ethan isn't going to settle down that easily." "Then find a way," I said with a slight smile. "After all, this is the only way for everyone to be at ease, isn't it?" She was silent for a long time before finally nodding. I'll find a chance to talk to Ethan." When Victoria came back from the engagement party, she collapsed on the sofa, exhausted. After taking off her makeup, she suddenly looked up and asked me, "Sincere, when are we getting married?" I looked up at her and repeated the same words I had said to Vivian. "When Ethan gets married, I'll marry you." Her smile froze on her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. "And if you dare to be shady with him after we're married," I closed my laptop, my voice calm but firm, "I'll bring his wife over to catch you in the act myself." The words were harsh, like a stone dropped into still water. Her face immediately fell. She didn't argue, just looked down and picked at the seams of the sofa. After a long pause, she mumbled, "I know." Her pensive expression was actually a bit surprising. The saying, "three heads are better than one," turned out to be true. With Victoria, Vivian, and Sophia working together, they actually managed to arrange Ethan's marriage. The bride-to-be was also a cosplayer and streamer. Her family owned a chain of supermarkets, making her quite a wealthy young woman. "She's just doing it as a hobby, not like us," Victoria said, scrolling through her phone on the sofa, a hint of pride in her voice for a job well done. "She's very straightforward and direct. You can relax now, right?" I grunted noncommittally, but I knew it must have taken a massive effort from the three of them to get a guy like Ethan, who was used to flitting between women, to settle down. As for the rich girl, she was probably being fed a whole lot of nonsense by the three of them. Even more dramatically, Ethan's engagement party was set for October 5th, just 2 days after Vivian's wedding. As soon as his date was confirmed, I started sending out my resume online. A month before her wedding, I submitted my resignation. The chapter of my life in this city was finally coming to a close. During those last few weeks, I was exceptionally gentle with Victoria. If she came home late from work, I'd have a late-night snack heated up for her. When she complained about a tiring photo shoot, I'd give her a shoulder massage. The wariness in her eyes gradually softened. Occasionally, she would lean against me and murmur, "You're still the best to me." Naturally, Victoria had to attend Ethan's wedding. But on that day, I used the excuse of a stomachache and didn't go with her. As soon as Victoria left, I quickly packed my luggage and rushed to the airport. Before boarding, I sent a text message to Victoria, "I have HIV." Meanwhile, Ethan's wedding was at its liveliest moment when the large screen behind him suddenly changed. Instead of the planned slideshow of happy wedding photos, the screen was filled with images of Ethan in bed with 3 different women, or with one on each arm. When Victoria, Sophia, and Vivian saw the photos, their faces turned deathly pale. Knowing that disaster had struck, all 3 immediately turned to run. Vivian's situation was slightly better. She was already married and hadn't cheated on her husband. At worst, the photos would ruin her reputation and lead to a divorce. But even with a divorce, she'd at least get half of his assets, enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. Although the 3 women's faces in the photos were pixelated, the bride, Penelope Ford, recognized them instantly as the very matchmakers who had set her up with Ethan. They were in the same circle, and she had heard rumors about photographers and certain models being entangled, but she had assumed that with Vivian married and Victoria having a boyfriend, it would never happen to her. She never thought she'd be the one they set up. "How dare you play me like this?" the bride laughed, a sound full of rage. "I thought you were my friends, but you 3 were just setting me up to be the fall guy," she charged off the stage. Ethan, seeing his bride coming at him, instinctively tried to block her, only to receive a hard slap across the face. "You scumbag!" she screamed. Relatives from both sides swarmed the stage, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks on Ethan. After leaving the hotel, the three women looked at each other and simultaneously reached for their phones to call me. That's when they saw the message I'd sent. The world started spinning. Sophia had to support Victoria to keep her from collapsing. Trembling, Victoria showed them the message on her phone. Vivian let out a scream and immediately hailed a cab, dragging Victoria with her toward the hospital. After a moment's thought, Sophia followed them. Meanwhile, as soon as my plane landed, I got a new SIM card and saved the contact information for my new colleagues. I didn't turn on my old phone until a week later, by which time I had completed my onboarding at the new company and was completely settled. Hundreds of messages flooded in the moment it powered on. I didn't read a single one. I went straight to sending a message to my father. "Dad, you were spineless your whole life. I can't be like you. I'll send you money for your retirement every month, on time. Other than that, we don't need to be in contact." As for Victoria, I never looked back. In this day and age, breaking up isn't complicated. If it hadn't been for my desire for revenge and my mother's constant interference, I would have cut ties with her long ago. No matter how deep the feelings, they can't survive that kind of betrayal. 3 years later, my annual salary was over $1 million. I bought a house in the city and had grown accustomed to its cold winters. Through a colleague, I met a Russian woman 7 years my junior, Anya Petrova. After a few months of dating, she proposed to me. I thought about it for a moment and accepted. She was insightful and open-minded. When she learned about my strained relationship with my parents, she didn't insist on inviting them to the wedding. On my wedding day, I turned on my old phone for the first time in a long while. Messages had still trickled in over the years. Victoria's messages had stopped after the first year. They had ranged from furious accusations of deceit to soft pleas for reconciliation and, finally, back to renewed anger. After a year, they went silent. I never replied. For the sake of our childhood friendship, pixelating her face in the photos was the last kindness I could offer her. Then there were the messages from my parents. My near final words had apparently shaken them. My mother's messages went from curses to pleas, asking for my whereabouts. I ignored them all. My father, however, surprised me. After realizing I wasn't coming back, he told me he was filing for divorce from my mother and suing my uncle's family to repay the years of debt. He would occasionally send me videos of the drama at my uncle's house. I had to admit, it suited me just fine. 6 months ago, when I learned he had successfully divorced her, recovered some of the money she had siphoned to her family, and even caused my cousin's marriage to fall apart, I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. After much thought, I sent my father a message. If he wanted to visit, he could let me know. His reply was ecstatic. When he arrived in the city, I booked him a hotel room for a week, and we talked for a long time. He apologized for enabling my mother's behavior all those years. He eventually returned to his hometown, unable to get used to the northern climate. Before he left, he promised he would never reveal my location to my mother. I didn't ask him to stay, but I did have him visit when my child was born so he could meet his grandson. Years later, when my father was old and I was over 40, I went back once to arrange a high-end nursing home for him. My mother must have found out from somewhere. She rushed over, hitting and screaming at me, calling me an unfilial son. I listened in silence. The truth was, after their divorce, I had been sending her alimony every month as required by law. If she still thought I was unfilial, so be it. I no longer cared. As for Victoria, I only learned about her situation from my father. She got married in the 3rd year after I left. Her husband was a civil servant, and their life was apparently stable. They had gotten married around the same time I did. I wasn't surprised she had moved on so quickly. After all, if you truly love someone, how could you bear to hurt them by being ambiguous with someone else?